Welcome to the updated team selection video where I talk about what's happened in Gameweek 27 as well as my updated plans for Gameweek 28 following what's happened in the FA Cup, Chelsea's double in 28 and their blank in 30, as well as Southampton, West Ham, and also the bench boost. I'm still looking to play it, but in order to do so I think I need to take a -4, possibly a -8, and I might even involve selling a Liverpool defender, which I don't want to do, but it's needed to fund these moves, so let's just get straight into it. In Gameweek 27, I scored 55 points and I activated the free hit. I actually gained around 20 points than what I would have done with my original team, but in terms of comparing it to the average, it wasn't that much of a gain. So most people scored similarly to me without using the free hit, and I think that isn't a great thing. But looking at it in hindsight and my own team, I don't regret it too much, but the Burnley players just definitely let me down. Weghorst as my captain got a yellow card in the second game. Ben Mee was actually substituted off with an injury in the second game very early on. And as for Tarkowski, just nothing really, 2 goals conceded in the second game and a yellow card in the first. So it was a disaster in some ways, but having Cancelo, who I didn't have in my original team, Heung-min Son and Harry Kane definitely helped me, and pretty much the only players that existed in my original team were Broja and Son. The rest were not in it at all. Cancelo got rid of on the wildcard in 26, and I don't regret many of these decisions. Amati was on my bench with 8 points. That would have been very nice if he came in somehow, but it wasn't meant to be. And yeah, ultimately, I made some bad decisions. I actually made a conscious choice to get Sterling in for Foden, and I made other moves like downgrading Pope to Foster in order to upgrade it, and in the end it wasn't really worth it. Although Foster played and I wouldn't have played a Southampton player or defender anyways, it was a good thing that I managed to cover their clean sheet, but ultimately not having Foden was a bit costly, and Mahrez not starting, that was a huge blow. And as for Fernandes, the biggest underperformer of the week, so all in all a pretty average and disappointing week, but considering how I would have done without playing the free hit, and there was a little bit of a gain despite the fact that my rank has only gone up by around 10,000 places, but hopefully Gameweek 28 is where the big gain happens and I can start pushing back into the top 100k and cementing a really high finish. Gameweek 27 is over and pretty much all the FA Cup games are as well. Let's keep an eye on what happens in the Everton game, because if they were to win, then their game against Watford will be a blank in Gameweek 30. Otherwise, that will be a bit interesting. We can have some Everton or Watford coverage. But as for Southampton, I was hoping that they would lose that game, but unfortunately they won quite comprehensively against West Ham. And although that kind of benefits me right now with Jeroboam and Son, and they're going to be playing in Gameweek 30, it leaves me in a bit of a difficult position because I want a bench boost and I'm not too keen on having Bowen for Gameweek 30 as well as his game in 28, which is very poor against Liverpool. Now, there's actually nothing really to suggest that he can't do really well against Spurs, but it does complicate my kind of plans to bench boost in 28, because bringing in Adams right now, and if he had a fixture in 30, makes him such an easy purchase up front. He could come in for Weghorst and I can make a few other alterations throughout my squad, having Coutinho in as well. But now it's a bit more tricky and I might end up keeping Jeroboam and making moves elsewhere. There is the possibility of just rolling the transfer and maybe not even playing the bench boost, but I actually would like to play the bench boost if possible, because with just a -4 or -8, I have a very good team that could score really highly and I wouldn't want to bench some of these players. So ultimately let me know what you guys think as well, but I've got quite a lot of different transfer plans which I'm going to be talking about later on and showing you how my team would look in Gameweek 28, 29 as well as 30, which is also really crucial because right now I have 9 players playing in Gameweek 30, so with just one transfer or two I can get to 11 and I don't think I need to use the free hit, and I would rather not use it even if I miss out on the Leicester players who are probably the best captaincy options that week. As things stand, I'm very happy with my starting 11 and even the captaincy. I could go with Rafinha, that probably makes the most sense with the players at my disposal, or even a Wolves defender, although I don't really think Cody's ceiling is that high. I'm happy with the triple Liverpool players against West Ham, having Jose Sarr and Cody there. Digne, 2 good games there against Southampton and Leeds. No more Aston Villa coverage at the moment, but Coutinho would be quite nice. And the big void really is having no Chelsea players at all. I would like to have a Chelsea defender, but not at the expense of a Liverpool one, because in the next 3 game weeks, they both have the same number of games free. So it's not really worth it to go from Robertson to Rudiger. The only reason why I would ever consider it is to fund other moves that I want to do, such as Che Adams and Coutinho. But are those moves that necessary now, following what's happened in the FA Cup? Probably not, especially in the case of Che Adams. But I could be very aggressive, take multiple hits, and then get Harry Kane in Gameweek 30. I'm going to be showing you that very soon as well. And I'd be happy to bench Tierney, but at the same time, having a bench boost of Ramsdale, Tierney, and then 2 more possibly double game week players, or someone like Son, Robertson, etc., I'd be very happy to do so, and I get it out of the way and I can focus completely on my starting 11 and navigating the final few weeks with a free hit, and that's pretty much it. And the triple captaincy, which will probably be deployed in Game Week 29, but I'm still open to other ideas. But now I'm going to head over to FPL.team, check that website out, and I'm going to plan ahead and show you how my team would look like. Despite Southampton blanking in Game Week 30, I'm still considering getting Che Adams in for Weghorst, as well as selling Jarrod Bowen for Jacob Ramsey. I would have enough money to do so. I'd have 2.1 million left over with these moves, and it also will be crucial in getting Harry Kane later down the line. There's also going to be another way I can go about this and then actually get rid of Son, get Harry Kane in, and make similar moves elsewhere, and that will pretty much set me very well for Game Week 30. I'll have 10 players, then I'll be left with a few players that I don't really want to get rid of, even if it's to get 11 in Game Week 30. So in the end, I actually might just not end up getting it a full 11 and just sticking with a 10. That's another way I can go about it for a -8. These 2 moves would be for a -4, as I only have 1 free transfer. And my captain with this team would be Rafinha or Salah. That's something I'm yet to decide. I probably wouldn't go elsewhere. But as I talked about in my best free hit team and wildcard team videos, I think if I had the Chelsea players like Rudiger, James, Mount, or Coutinho, they would be my top captaincy options this week, and I would favour Reece James or Coutinho above them all. Rafinha is still pretty good, and I think that Leeds could bounce back under their new manager, at least for a little bit, have that little manager bounce. But in the end, I think this team would look pretty good, and ultimately, it doesn't really matter who I bench because I'd be gaining all of their points anyway. But looking at the worst players, per se, in this team this week, you'd put Saka, Tierney, Ramsdale and possibly Robertson. That's still a pretty good bench, and I think that would do very well. So I am looking to use the bench boost this week, and with a -4 I could achieve that and get rid of 2 players who have a pretty poor fixture in Game Week 28 and replace them with pretty much double Game Week players. And in the case of Jacob Ramsey, he also plays in Game Week 30. This is an alternative plan where I get rid of Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold for a Chelsea defender, and this could be Rudiger or Reece James. I think Reece James is the more exciting pick and he's got the better upside, yet Rudiger's the safe set and forget option. Coutinho would come in and he'd probably be my captain in this case, unless I bring in Reece James and maybe go for him instead. And then Che Adams would also come in up front, but as I already discussed a few times, Che Adams isn't as necessary of a pick now with Southampton blanking in Game Week 30, unfortunately, and I am getting rid of players like Jarrod Bowen who actually don't blank in 30, so some of these moves you could say are avoidable or not necessary, and long term, I would argue Jarrod Bowen is still a better option than Coutinho. It's just over the next 2 or 3, Coutinho has that extra fixture, and he looks pretty good, especially in Game Week 28, as opposed to Bowen, who not many people would want when he's facing Liverpool and would be happy to bench him. I'd still bench boost with this team, just like with the first team I showed you in FPL.team, but the main difference is I'd be taking a -8 in this case and getting rid of Robertson for Rudiger or Reece James, and that's not really necessary once again because both of them blank in Game Week 30 and Liverpool have a double in 29, so I'd be substituting a double game week in 28 and gaining one in that week, but then losing one in Game Week 29. So ultimately, I don't really gain too much from doing so, and I like Robertson and Trent a lot, and I would like to keep them long term, but of course, having Chelsea defenders is still very beneficial, and I would like to have that on top of the Liverpool defenders, but substituting one for the other doesn't really sit right with me. Looking at the second set of options which I just showed you in terms of transfers, this is how my team would look like in Game Week 29. Salah would probably be my triple captain. If not, I will save it for another game week later down the line, and I'd be happy to bench the triple Wolves players against Everton and Digne away to West Ham. Coutinho away to West Ham isn't something that I'd be too fond of having in my starting 11, but the rest look very strong, and I think that's still a pretty good team. But as I just mentioned, losing Robertson for that double game week 29 fixture, that means I go from around 7 double game weekers in game week 29 to 6. After making those 3 moves in game week 28 for a -8, getting Rudiger, Che Adams and Coutinho in for Weghorst, Bowen and Robertson, I would have this team and it would look pretty good. I'd have 9 players still, so no gains there for game week 30, and I'd be able to captain Son and I'd look pretty good, and then I can make 1 or 2 free transfers heading into game week 30 for free, of course, because I wouldn't use one in game week 29. Now, things can change. This is not all set in stone. I'm open-minded to other ideas, possibly taking a hit in 29 or in game week 30, maybe even more. But ultimately, I don't think I need to do so. And some of these best players in game week 30, like Maddison, Vardy, I actually wouldn't mind having them in the long term, but it's going to be a bit difficult to actually get them in ahead of game week 30. So Heung-min Son could actually be a kind of sacrificial lamb to get Harry Kane or Jamie Vardy in. So that's something I'm yet to think about. but after those moves I just proposed, that's how I'd look like. And if I had just taken the -4 and gotten Che Adams in and Jacob Ramsey, it'd be very similar. And in all of these cases, I would still have 9 players in Game Week 30. Once again, I'm probably looking to skip the free hit in that week and save it for maybe Game Week 33 or 36 later on in the season. This is one possibility in Game Week 30 where I can get James Maddison and Vardy in for Heung-min Son and Che Adams, and this would be for free in Game Week 30, but then having no Spurs coverage, even though they're facing West Ham, isn't that ideal, and I still like Son and Kane long term, but both Leicester and Spurs are unreliable, and in terms of the captaincy, it has to be Jamie Vardy this week if I were to get him and Maddison in, and they're actually good options long term. They've got that fixture swing very soon, and they're looking like pretty good options, especially with Vardy returning and showing his class against Burnley. But now I'm going to be showing you the alternatives, so there's quite a lot of stipulations and differences in how I can approach this, and that's what I like about playing the wildcard in 26. I've got more flexibility, but at the same time, I think that my team is pretty well set for Game Week 30, 28 and 29 without actually having to use any transfers. The alternative to getting the double Leicester attack or just keeping Son and having that 9 in Game Week 30 and just playing it as it is to get Harry Kane in and also Jacob Ramsey on top of those -8 transfers I made in Game Week 28 with Coutinho, Rudiger, etc. So that will be quite difficult to follow, and there is quite a lot of stipulations as I already said, but this is just to be completely transparent and show you my kind of long-term thinking. I've got 2 or 3 different ways to approach this, and it's going to be something I'm going to look at until the end and try to leave these changes as late as possible and close to the deadline. And also I'm going to be waiting for the Everton versus Watford game, because that could also play a part in my final decision making. Maybe I bring in Dennis, even though that's probably a big trap as it always has been. But yeah, let me know what you guys think as well. And I think in Game Week 30, Harry Kane, Vardy, Maddison and Son would be my top captaincy options. I would try to avoid the Arsenal, Aston Villa, Wolves and Leeds players. But in Game Week 29, I think the captaincy would be pretty straightforward. Same with Game Week 28. It's just a question of me not having the best options available in my team for the captaincy that week. So that's why I might make some compromises here and there and also be really aggressive and make some moves to get Che Adams in for 2 game weeks, then get rid of him for Harry Kane or Jamie Vardy and change things about that way. So I might be aggressive because all season I've been a bit conservative in some aspects, and that hasn't enabled me to push on in rank. Even though I've been consistently around 40k to 100k all season, I want to start pushing forward and finally cementing a really good rank. But the triple captaincy will probably be used in Game Week 29 on Salah. In Game Week 28, I'm looking to use the bench boost. If not, that will probably be safe for Game Week 36. But I'm still a bit skeptical about holding that chip for that long, because I'd also have such an emphasis on having good squad depth and a strong bench that in the end my starting 11 might be a bit weaker as a result. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let me know your plans. I mean, it's very important to kind of plan everything ahead, have a good idea of what you want to do, but also be open-minded, because things can change and you shouldn't have everything set in stone, because anything can happen and you need to prepare and adapt to anything that comes your way. But you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. We're almost at 1,000 followers for both of those platforms, and you can check the description below to join the Discord server, the FPL League, and become a channel member as well as a Patreon. So thank you to all the channel members and the Patreon. It's much appreciated, and check all of those stuff out. I think you'll like it, and you can get exclusive early access to videos if you become a legend. And right now there's a special offer on Patreon, so if you sign up on any level, you can get exclusive early access to all the videos. So check that out. You can get that for as cheap as £3 per month, and it'd be much appreciated. And just a massive thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel. Take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you next time.